In the heart of Canada, behind polite smiles, quiet streets, and open markets, a different power has been growing. Through tanks, not through invasions, but through whispered deals, silent money, and invisible chains. While Canadians slept, the Chinese Communist Party wove itself into Canada's democracy, its markets, and classrooms. It's not a story of war. It's a story of infiltration. One handshake, one bribe, one lie at a time. From Parliament Hill to the casino floors of Vancouver, the threads of influence stretch wide and deep. This isn't a spy thriller. This is Canada's reality. Canada's greatest strength has always been its openness, an open democracy, an open economy, an open society. But what if the openness became the perfect weapon? What if a foreign power used Canada's virtues, turned them into vulnerabilities? The Chinese Communist Party didn't need to conquer Canada. It only needed to infiltrate. Through clandestine political operations, financial manipulation, and cultural soft power, Beijing has quietly embedded its influence deep into Canadian society.
The Prime Minister likes to say that he takes foreign interference in our elections seriously, but in fact, he's embraced it. This started with a $200,000 donation to the Trudeau Foundation, and it has ballooned into a large clandestine transfer of funds from the dictatorship in Beijing to influence Canadian elections.
It has groomed political candidates, laundered billions through Canadian real estate, attempted to rewrite curricula in Canadian schools, and manipulated ethnic media to control narratives not just about China, but about Canada itself. This is not just espionage. It's a systematic influence warfare, slow, silent, strategic. It's a new kind of conquest, one where democracy is not crushed, corroded. This is the Maple Trap, a silent war for Canada's future, fought not with armies, but with influence. Choice. Because once you see the trap, you can begin to escape it. It began with hope in 1970. Canada became one of the first Western nations to officially recognize the People's Republic of China. Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau believed in engagement and building bridges through trade, dialogue, and diplomacy. For decades, that hope grew, trade soared, cultural exchange blossomed. Canada welcomed immigrants from Hong Kong, Taiwan, and the mainland. Communities that enriched the country beyond measure, but not everyone came in peace. As Canada opened its doors, so too did it open the vaults and its vulnerabilities. Among the waves of immigration came others, triad operatives, money launderers, agents of influence. In the late 1990s, Canada's intelligence community stumbled onto something it wasn't prepared to confront. It was called Project Sidewinder. A classified joint task force between CSIS and the RCMP. Their mission? To investigate whether foreign governments were using criminal organizations and corporate entities to buy influence inside of Canada. As the investigation unfolded, a disturbing pattern emerged. Chinese state-linked businessmen, some with ties to triad criminal syndicates, were making large donations to Canadian political parties, investing in real estate and embedding themselves into Canadian institutions. What Project Sidewinder uncovered was not espionage in the traditional sense. It was something subtler, a new form of infiltration. The report named names, powerful Chinese tycoons who maintained close ties to the Communist Party and whose investments were buying leverage over Canadian media, telecom, and even aerospace sectors. Some of these actors were linked to Canada's most sensitive sectors: nuclear energy, satellite technology, and telecommunications. And perhaps most disturbingly, Sidewinder suggests that some Canadian politicians and business leaders were complicit, whether through negligence or convenience. But instead of launching a full-scale investigation, Canada shut it down. Sidewinder was discredited. The team was disbanded. The report was ordered destroyed. Why? Because the truth was too uncomfortable, too politically sensitive, and for some, too economically inconvenient. There were accusations that the report was xenophobic, that it risked harming Canada's trade with China, and it might offend valuable business partners. Canada made a choice to protect relationships over reality. Project Sidewinder was the first full warning, and it was ignored. Buried, not because it was false, but because it was true. By the early 2000s, the players Sidewinder had named, tycoons, businessmen, CCP proxies, were expanding their reach into the Canadian society unchecked. Sidewinder tried to raise the alarm, and Canada hit snooze. This wasn't just a failure of intelligence, it was a failure of courage. And it allowed the Chinese Communist Party to continue what it does best: win without fighting, influence without accountability, buy silence with our own money. By the time Canadians heard the name Sidewinder again, the trap was already in place. While Canada looked away, the strategy evolved. The CCP's United Front Work Department, an influence machine dating back to Mao, expanded its reach across the world. Its goal? To make the enemy serve us without them realizing they've been captured. United Front proxies embedded themselves in community centers, Chinese language media, political donation pipelines. Their mission? To cultivate allies, silence critics, and shape Canada's political landscape from within. In the 2000s, China's economy erupted. Trillions flowed outward, and some of that money found its way into Canadian soil. Not just through trade, but through cash, casinos, and condos. Beijing's elite and its criminal underworld saw Canada not just as a friend, but as a safe deposit box. And where money goes, influence follows. The seeds of influence were sown quietly, through trade, through diplomacy, through trust. But with every handshake, every deal, every blind eye turned, the trap was tightening. By the time Canada realized what was happening, the roots ran deep. We thought we were trading with China, but China was trading for control. The seeds of influence were planted decades ago, hidden beneath diplomacy, prosperity, and polite denial. But influence, like roots, does not stay underground forever. It grows, it strangles, and when it finally breaks through the surface, the damage is already done. In 2023, a bombshell report confirmed what many feared. The Chinese Communist Party interfered directly in Canada's federal election. At least 11 candidates received covert support from Beijing, funneled through community proxies, cultural organizations, and hidden donations. The names? Classified, protected. The public was told only this, that no elections were decisively affected. But in a democracy, it's not just the results that matters, it's the trust. CSIS knew, the Prime Minister knew, the public was left blind. But it wasn't enough for Beijing to back candidates. Those who dared criticize the regime would be targeted next. Michael Chung, a Canadian member of parliament, spoke out against Beijing's genocide of the Uyghurs. He criticized the brutal crackdown in Hong Kong. He called out the regime's iron grip on freedom. In response, Beijing went after his family. Zhao Wei, a Chinese diplomat stationed at Toronto's consulate, was caught monitoring Chung's relatives in Hong Kong, gathering intelligence, preparing pressure. Only after the leak exploded into the public eye did Ottawa act. Zhao was expelled, but Beijing was already prepared for retaliation. Canada took a stand. Beijing answered with force. In retaliation, China expelled Jennifer Lynn Lalonde, Canada's consul in Shanghai. The message was unmistakable. Challenge Beijing and pay the price. This was not diplomacy. This was authoritarian muscle exercised across borders. But some would pay far worse as pawns in a darker game of hostage diplomacy. To understand how far the Chinese Communist Party is willing to go, we have to go back to a pivotal moment in 2018. A moment that exposed just how powerless Canada was in the face of foreign aggression. On December 1st, 2018, Canada arrested Meng Wanzhou, CFO of Huawei, who's accused of fraud and conspiracy to violate U.S. sanctions. While Meng lived in a $13 million mansion in Vancouver while fighting extradition with a team of lawyers, Beijing struck back. Michael Kovrig, a former diplomat, and Michael Spavor, a bridge builder to North Korea, kidnapped, isolated, tortured by darkness for 1,019 days. Their crime? Being Canadian at the wrong moment. In 2021, Meng Wanzhou struck a deferred prosecution agreement. She boarded a private jet, free to return home as a hero in China. And hours later, the two Michaels were released. The truth exposed. They were never criminals. They were bargaining chips. Through it all, Ottawa hesitated. Ottawa delayed. Ottawa downplayed. And Beijing learned Canada would blink first. There were no expulsions when the Michaels were taken, no sanctions when evidence of election interference emerged, no foreign agent registry even after infiltration was exposed. Canada's message to Beijing was not one of strength. It was a whisper. You may proceed. This was not diplomacy. It was capitulation. The interference exposed in Parliament was shocking, but it was only the beginning. Because when foreign influence takes root, it doesn't stop at elections. It seeps into homes, into neighborhoods, into the very economy that people trust to build their futures. It began in the shadows of British Columbia's casino floors. Suitcases stuffed with cash, hockey bags rolled into private rooms, no alarms, no questions. This wasn't gambling. It was laundering on an industrial scale, and it would expose a sickness at the heart of Canada's economy. A system so compromised, it fueled not just crime, but despair. In 2017, newly appointed BC Attorney General David Eby was handed a folder, a video no one had dared show before. He watched in disbelief as the footage played. Men were arriving after midnight, pushing hockey bags, bursting with $20 bills. No background checks, no source of funds verification, no questions asked. But the question was, why? Casinos weren't blind. They were complicit. Every night this happened, they made money, massive profits from high roller fees, luxury services, and government kickbacks based on revenue performances. And regulators? They knew too. Warnings were sent, reports were filed, whistleblowers raised alarms, and were ignored, demoted, or silenced. British Columbia was addicted to casino revenue, so addicted, it let the triads walk in through the front door. What Eby had uncovered was a model, now known as the Vancouver model. The Vancouver model connected China's capital controls, fentanyl trafficking, and real estate speculation into a seamless global criminal pipeline. In China, wealthy gamblers, called whales, can't move large amounts of money out of the country. So Chinese triads flush with drug money from fentanyl sales in Canada and the US offered a solution. They hand the gamblers millions in Canadian cash stuffed into duffel bags, no questions asked. In return, the whales wire an equal amount from their Chinese bank accounts to the triad's Chinese bank accounts. The drug cash gets cleaned, the whales move money overseas, the triads walk away with legitimate funds, and the casino, regulators, and government collect their cut. The footage left Ebby shaken. He would later call it mind-boggling, evidence of corruption hiding in plain sight. And a province that had sold its soul to dirty money.
This last weekend, we saw stunning revelations in the Globe and Mail about money laundering in BC and its connections to drug trafficking and real estate in Metro Vancouver. The investigation revealed that drug traffickers have laundered tens of millions of dollars through Vancouver real estate. And this is only a fraction of the problem. To say this is astonishing is an understatement.
In the wake of Ebby's discovery, pressure mounted. The BC government could no longer deny what was happening in its own backyard.
Money laundering is an enormous problem in our province. The reason, in large part, for calling the inquiry was the collapse of a federal prosecution that, in my opinion, was a critically important case about a money service business in our province that was alleged to have laundered hundreds of millions of dollars. Because that case didn't go ahead, because we still have a almost complete gap in terms of enforcement around money laundering, the people who are money laundering are not being held accountable.
And so the Cullen Commission was born, a public inquiry into how British Columbia became a global hub for money laundering. For 2 years, the commission pulled back the curtains. Over 200 witnesses testified. The stories then told were shocking and damning. The evidence painted a chilling picture. A government that had been warned and chose to look away. Casinos knowingly accepted criminal cash. Regulators stayed silent, and political leaders prioritized profit over public protection. The Cullen Commission confirmed what whistleblowers had said for years. The Vancouver model was real, and it wasn't just operating, it was thriving. And now, finally, Canadians could understand what they were really up against. This is why you can't afford a home. This is why Vancouver feels like it was sold off to the highest bidder. This is why wages couldn't keep up, but condo prices soared. The Vancouver model didn't just enrich criminals, it crushed ordinary Canadians. Families were priced out, seniors forced to sell, young Canadians locked in rental purgatory. Entire condo towers were purchased with laundered cash, then left empty, lifeless vaults for foreign wealth, not homes for Canadians. The final report didn't hold back. A willful blindness infected the system. After the Cullen Commission, reforms were promised. Some measures have been taken. New source of funds checks in casinos. The federal government introduced a beneficial ownership registry to reveal who really owns properties. A foreign buyer ban on residential homes effective in 2023. But critics say enforcement remains weak. The money still flows, just smarter, deeper, and harder to trace. Today in 2025, dirty money still circulates through Canada's economy. It's harder to spot. It's shifted into crypto. It's buried behind shell companies, but it's there. Until true transparency, tough enforcement come, until politicians put sovereignty above profits, the Maple Trap stays open. As much as it hurts me to say this, it must be said. Canada's silence is not neutrality, it's betrayal. Betrayal of those who can't afford a home. Betrayal of those who lost their children to drug overdoses. Betrayal of the Chinese immigrants who fled the tyranny of the Chinese Communist Party only to find it waiting for them in Canada. The Dark Empire series is not just reporting news about China. It is documenting the front line of humanity's battle between truth and tyranny. Though episode 1 focuses on Canada, make no mistake, this is not just a Canadian problem. The tentacles of the Chinese Communist Party reach far beyond Vancouver, embedding themselves in cities, economies, and institutions across the world. If the world doesn't wake up, what happened here could happen to your country, and in some places, it already has. I'll see you in episode 2 of the Dark Empire series.